We'll start our CAT development learning about one of the most fundamental components of CAT, and that is the presentation. The presentation is going to make this slideshow, and this presentation component has all of these different slides that we can put into it. The most fundamental piece of CAT is building the slideshow. The slideshow all happens within this presentation component that we can use inside of our JavaScript code right here. Our presentation component consists of all of these different slide templates. Learning about the slide templates is one of the most fundamental things that we'll learn about CAT. And one of the things that we'll be writing the most when we write our code to create our slideshows. We can see here we have a title slide component. This title slide takes in a title, and that title is Getting Started with Object-Oriented Programming. And then there is a title slide. The learning objective slide is pretty straightforward. It's just going to take the lesson name, and then it's going to take the objectives in a list format. And you can see that produces here, it's called learning objectives because that's just the name of the component. And then it has in the background our lesson name, and then it has the list of all the different objectives that we're going to learn inside of this lesson. The title and the learning objectives are pretty easy to just copy and paste. What we're going to be coding the most is going to be these next type of slide templates, which are the media slides. We can see here we have a media slide where we have the title again, and we can see media slide on this line 24. Our title is What is Object-Oriented Programming? And that populates over there. We grab that subtitle for that text that floats above the title, and we can give that the lesson name so that each of our slides is going to have that lesson name just hovering above so that it keeps everybody on track. And then this last thing that's kind of cool in the declaration is that we have these bootstrap icons. You can see I use geofill, and so that's kind of that pinpoint thing here because this is the topic we're going to be covering. What is object-oriented? And in other slides, I'll use the gem icon, and so you can pick your own, and just as long as it flows and it makes sense and you think that it'll be received well by students, I'm sure that no one will complain. That's all defining the declaration of this media slide template. A media slide consists of a description and content. These are also components that the CAT library gives us. The media description, we can just populate with some text. This media description, I put in an H2 component that CAT gives us and just set a programming paradigm that we use in the real world to model what we want to represent. So you can see right there, populates just fine. We can go and we can change this to an H1 if we want the text to be a bit bigger. I kept it as an H2 because as you can see here, this text is going to be just a little bit too big for me to be comfortable with because then it's like rivaling the title for the size. So I think H2 is probably the best bet. But I just want to show you how easy it is to update this stuff and then to save and continue building content. This CAT tool is really, really powerful for being able to scale and make this whole curriculum building very easy. Our next thing is media content. In my media content, I included an image, and you can see what this path does, that this is also a dependency we have to import up on the top. We have this import path from path. We take path and we use this .resolve method that path has, and we give it the dir name. The dir name is just the path above where this slides file exists. Within this directory name, we want to find the assets and then the model image because I have this image saved in the full stack development repository. This image is saved here. Really great place to go and find images because you're going to have to find images to populate your content with is this site called Unsplash because all the images are free because all of the authors on Unsplash are just incredibly nice, giving us access to all their content for free. I found myself using words like clone or model or like just a word that kind of denotes a representation of something else because that to me makes me think of object. So if that's where I found that doll thing that I have on my slide. But so let's take a Baby Yoda. And so if we click on this, you can download it for free by clicking this button. And then the most important part is that you got to click this share button and copy this link because we have this citation component that we put under our image. And then we can paste that link from Unsplash into our citation so that if you click this guy right here, if I go out of this editor view, if I click this guy right here, it'll take us right to where I got this image from. So Unsplash is really great. There's a lot of other websites too that give you free images if you don't like Unsplash for whatever reason. Moving forward, the last thing that a lot of our slides are going to have is the speaker notes. As the curriculum engineers, we want to make a flow that is going to guide from one topic to the next. We don't want an instructor to accidentally just see this slide, what is object-oriented programming, and explain the entire concept on this one single slide, because that might defeat the purpose of the next maybe 5 or 10 slides. Include in this speaker notes everything that they'll need to cover in this slide so that we don't mess up any of the flow and the things that might cause students to get lost. It's that concept of scaffolding that we cover a lot in our orientation. Now that we know we can create a media slide, we can add some description text, we can add an image, and we can add our speaker notes. Let's go on to something new. If we check out this using the class keyword slide, that I believe is also a media slide. So yeah, that's a media slide. But check out here, we have some text, some code. We have a code block. So this code block, I really like to include code blocks in most of my slide presentations, because I think that one of the things that our boot camps are really great at is explaining the theory, but then getting students really, really quickly to a place where they're comfortable writing code. I think the way to do that is to introduce them to some of the code early on. So after I talk about what is an object and what is a class, the next thing I want to do is like, here's the code. Let's just dive right in. And we can use right here in our media content, I have a header for my code block, and then I have the code snippet component that I use to define that code block. So that code snippet, the JavaScript annotation right here, the JS, will configure this code block with JavaScript syntax highlighting. So we want to make sure we have this JavaScript syntax highlighting so that the colors all match what the students will see in their editors. And continuing on here, in this Excel rows as objects slide, we'll see that we have a column slide. If I change this columns 2 to be columns 3, we'll see the slides update to have 3 columns rather than 2, just kind of like the same kind of idea as Bootstrap. I think this is probably using Bootstrap in the background. And so now we have 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns. And so if you can add more text or more things in a vertical way, you can make it look nice. Try and stick to not so much stuff bundled into one single slide. But I'm sure there's going to be some time where maybe you have one picture on the left, one picture on the right, and then text in the center where it won't be too overwhelming, would probably be my thought. Or you could also do 1 column. And so if you do 1 column, I think this might break because there's 2 different things. I guess it'll try and put those 2. Yeah, see, now it's going to break a little bit because I have 2 components existing inside of 1 column. So it kind of kicks the second one out. But you could see if maybe we wanted a slide where we wanted just a picture or just a code block, then this column 1 thing configuration becomes appealing. So with that, we'll go back to column 2's how I had it before. And then the last thing, or the last slide template that we want to talk about is at the bottom here. We use this text slide. And so text slide can be useful for more than just the summary. But as you can see, it fits in really well for the summary because we can just have 1 line that says, we've just covered some of the concepts of object-oriented programming. And then we can list out some things here using the UL component within CAT to list out the things you've learned. And hopefully this will make it very easy for students to finish whatever note-taking they did during class by just jotting down, this was the content, and get all those memory triggers going so that it's really easy to interpret. This was just learning slide templates, the most fundamental thing we work with in CAT.